how does the business work? Like, explain the ins and outs, the farming process. I've seen pictures of you over the years on boats. I was like, hey, look at this Forrest Gump over here. That's what actually I was like. That's when I saw you a couple of months ago. I was like, yeah, I knew you were up to something. So kind of just go into that.
Sure. So it's funny because in 2010 we had our 10 year, I guess, or no, what was it? 2012. Wow, I'm out of it right now. So we were at 7.
Focused.
So it would have been 7. It would have been 17. We would have had our 10 year, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So
yep.
I was a couple years into it at that point. I'm trying to remember though if I had thought about even 5 years out. I don't think so. I think because that would have been 12. That would have been 2. Yeah, I guess it would have been around that time. I think it was actually at the 5 year. It was 5 year. I remember going back to that at Bucknell and talking to folks about, this idea I had, for farming oysters. I'm definitely not the first to do it, historically, and definitely not the first in the Chesapeake, but one of the earlier farms to do it. The daily process definitely involves going out boats most days and actually, either, tending to the crop or harvesting the crop to sell the oysters. So, back when I was talking about it to other alum in 2012, I was envisioning exactly what you're talking about with going out in rubber boots and all kinds of weather, just like Forrest Gump. The main difference there being is that he was, as a fictional character, just that in general, he's relying upon what's out in the water, and he's relying upon what he catches. Now with oyster farming, we basically plant our own crop every year. So, like I said before, some of it's tending to it, which means basically keeping the crop happy. So, you start off, you get a million oysters. They fit into like a couple sacks, maybe this big or so, a couple big watermelons, for example, to give you a comparison of volume. And then by the end of it, it's several tractor trailer loads, packed to the brim. So there's a lot of manual and physical effort involved with getting it from a couple little watermelons up to, that kind of volume, because they grow somewhat exponentially in that, you start off you might get 4 bags, and that turns into 16, that turns into 64, because they're just growing so fast that you have to keep the stocking density consistent. There's a lot of work involved with that. You have to constantly grade them by size because they're growing at different rates. And then there's the harvesting of the oysters, where we're pulling them out of the water, washing them. We're basically culling them by size for certain orders. Certain chefs want certain things. And then we're literally putting them in, wax cardboard boxes and sending them around the country to go to different chefs and buyers. So, my day-to-day now, I'm less on the boats compared to what I was. I think that's probably where the business needs me at the moment. I'm currently delivering some days of the week to deliver directly to chefs in the Mid-Atlantic. But sometimes, or most of the time I should say, I'm, back to my number crunching days. And I'm looking at, trying to think about farm strategy, because it's really tough to know 100% what's in the water, how fast things are growing, what kind of supply you have. It's really tough to read demand too. That's why we're in so many markets, because we want to kind of smooth our demand out. So a lot more time in the office these days than being out in the boats, but I think my body and the business kind of needs that right now. But there's, a team we have of 2 other working partners, and I think 7 employees we're up to now, and they're, most days they're out there, 10 hours a day on the water and or in the packing room, and they're hard at work, moving oysters around, turning through them, sorting them by size, using some machinery to do that. It's pretty physical, pretty hands-on.
How many employees was that again?
I think we're up to like 7 in total, something like that. Yeah, I think it's 7. Yep.
Awesome.
2 working partners. So we're still, very much a small business. But as far as farms go, we're one of the more medium to large size farms in the state now.
Yeah, it sounds like, you're the visionary, you're the expert on it, and, you can't be going out there like you used to, but it still seems like you're hands-on, which seems like you kind of get the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not really the expert per se, because I'm constantly learning and making mistakes. I mean, I think that's like anything in life. Like, I've been at it for 10 years, and, I feel like I've definitely put the hours in to become an expert, but the reality is it's farming. So you can think you have everything dialed perfectly, and then nature throws you a curveball, because that's what you're depending on for survivability of the farm, the growth rates of your product, even comes down to how it's tasting and the consistency of the product and all that stuff. So, I wouldn't go as far as say I'm an expert. I'd say I'm, proficient at it. But I think the idea is that you have enough people that are hands-on every day that, hopefully collectively you can put your heads together and come up with the best decisions and best strategies. So, I enjoy the strategy end too. I still like getting out there and getting on the boat every now and then. It hasn't happened much of late. I've been helping out with some harvest here and there, more media opportunities. But, it's always the grass is greener, right? Sometimes, like, I miss it now being in the office. I didn't really love being in an office, and now I'm crunching numbers again, and I'm like, oh, man, I wish I could get out there. But then, you get out there for a little while. It's hot, it's sweaty, it's dirty, and you're like, man, this is a draining day. I think it's when you get into your groove, I found. So, like, your first day out in the water after not being out for weeks or months or whatever, it's hard, like, mentally and physically. And then by a few days in, you're just like mentally, something's changed, where you're able to just kind of ignore all the discomfort. Because there's a lot of, I don't want to downplay that. You're working outside year-round, 12 months of the year. So it's hot in the summer. It's cold in the winter. You're exposed to all the elements, insects, flies, mud, rain, storms, ice. I mean, you name it. There's a fair amount of discomfort in the job. And, that's something that, again, I don't miss it when it's initial, but after a while, you just mentally can kind of flip the switch. And you're like, this isn't bad. Let's just get the job done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like anything in life. You don't want too much of one thing. You don't want to be in an office every day. You don't want to be outside every day. You want to find that perfect balance, right? So I'm sure you're still finding it. And I like that you're still humble, man. You're a future expert, all right? You're a budding expert in farming, all right? So
I don't know if anybody. I don't even know if anybody at the top levels could even call themselves that, but maybe.
Yeah. Semantics. So what about So you brought up the weather. How does weather impact the business overall in terms of growing it and everything to do with deliveries and
sure.
that?
Yeah, it's more on the growing side, I'd say, Mike. I mean, like, for example, this year we were 6 weeks behind going into growing season. We had a lot of people on the East Coast know this. We had a pretty wet, cold spring, and it felt like summer was never going to get here. And then finally, sometime in May, I feel like it was mid-May, like mid to late May, the temperature started to rise, air temperature started to go up. Water temperature started to go up, and then all of a sudden, algae shows up in the water, and that's what oysters eat. They're vegetarian, and they basically eat, the plant matter that's in the water. Not all of it, but the kind they like. And anyway, long story short, I've seen growth as early as mid-March in some years, and we didn't really see anything budge on the farm till sometime early May. So, that's back 6 weeks of growth that you're counting on, which is not insignificant, even though it's slow growth in the beginning. So now here we are in a bit of a market crunch where we're a little behind on, trying to keep up with demand. And, if we had that 6 weeks of growth, we'd have, 6 weeks more product maybe, or something along that line. It's always linear.